This is eTurbo News in Honolulu with our daily breaking news show. Please stay tuned. Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Juergen Steinmetz, joining you from eTurbo News and Breaking News Show. Today, I'm here in beautiful Honolulu, a little bit of a cloudy day, and my partner, Dr. Peter Tarlow, is joining us from his home, what is College Station, Texas. And how's everything in College Station, Peter, today?
Well, College Station Day is having a beautiful day. It's about 80 degrees or about 26 degrees on the Celsius scale. It is blue sky. We were having blue skies. So it's a really lovely day in College Station, a great day to take a walk before the heat of the summer comes. So this is springtime in Texas. And by the way, this is a time when all the wildflowers are out. And that means you see fields of blue and yellow and orange and just it's beautiful to drive along the highways in Texas during the springtime. It's just a beautiful experience.
How far are you from College Station? From the next major city is Houston, isn't it?
It is. It's about 100 miles away. So if you make a triangle with Dallas on the top, on the eastern side of the triangle, bottom eastern side would be Houston, and on the western side of the triangle would be Austin. So Dallas, Austin, and Houston. I'd be right in the middle of the triangle, about 200 miles south of Dallas, 100 miles northeast of Austin, and 100 miles northwest of Houston. So equally inaccessible to all three major cities.
You can afford the gas.
No, yet here gas luckily is not too bad. It's running about $3.70 a gallon, which is a lot cheaper than a lot of other places. But it's still very expensive for us. Last year at this time, it was under $2 a gallon. So it's jumped from almost, from $2 to $3.70 is quite a big jump.
No, it's an amazing. I can tell you here in Hawaii, we're hitting $6 on a gallon of gas.
Yes.
Very soon we're at 5 something, and it is a big difference.
In California, I think they're at 7, moving towards $8 a gallon. So,
Wow.
So it's a good thing the people in Hawaii and California are very rich; they can afford the gas.
Well, definitely beer these days is and wine might be cheaper than gas.
But I don't think you can run a car on beer and wine, can you?
Probably not. What about vodka?
That would work, except you probably can't do it because of the sanctions.
Oh, I'm not talking about Russian vodka. So
You'd have to you can import. The second largest producer of vodka is Israel, I believe. So you could import the vodka from Israel.
There you go. There you go.
It's kosher vodka, so it'll even be better.
Okay, so I'm sure the Israelis can, if anyone can figure it out, the Israelis will be able to
they're
figure
good
it
at
out.
that. So it's been a really interesting day today. Lots is going on. Of course, lots. Unfortunately, we saw the terrible carnage in Ukraine, and with the retreating Russian troops, how many people were murdered with their hands tied behind their back, and people appear to have been shot and raped. And it almost reminds us again of World War II and what the Nazis did to people under occupation. So that's really tragic. It doesn't look like this war is going to end anytime soon. And that's kind of scary because the longer it goes on, the chances for some major miscalculation or something going wrong, and you're still dealing with Russia, even if they have not proven themselves very well on the battlefield, they have over 6,000 nuclear weapons. And all you need is one of those to go off, and you got a major problem. So that's the big news, I think, of the world. Another news story, and I'm sure you'll tell us more, is and there are now newspapers reporting about it also, the real crime wave that's hitting in Playa de Carmen and in Cancun in Mexico. And this is again a really major problem. Next week is in Spanish called Semana Santa, Holy Week, which is a big vacation week in Mexico. There's spring break going on. And matter of fact, my son and some of his friends were in Cancun and in Playa de Carmen uh, over the weekend. And his friend, and I sent you a picture of him. He was walking home using his phone to guide him so that he wouldn't get lost. It was a major street in Playa de Carmen, and a group of muggers came and they beat him up with a baseball bat. They put him into, he ended up being left on, he couldn't walk, was left on the sidewalk, and a police officer eventually found him. They brought him to a hospital where no one spoke English, which is again shocking in a place such as Playa de Carmen. And luckily, my son was able to get to the hospital and translate, so that helped. But there's been a lot of news about not only the cartels, which of course are always bad, but the fact that just people going out and robbing phones or whatever it happened to be, and that's really taking the charm of Cancun away. And that will be a really destructive thing, not only for tourism on the Mexican Caribbean, but really for Mexico as a country, it'll become a black eye. So hopefully the Mexicans will be able to really get a national tourism police off the ground, doing something that will reverse this negativity. And just putting soldiers on the beach is really not quite the way to do it. So those are really two big stories that are
Yeah,
taking.
and Peter, I think what really looking at the situation in Mexico, Mexico is not alone. It looks like property crime, even violent property crime, is on the rise, and that it may very well have to do with the economic situations, not necessarily here, but anywhere in the world because of COVID. Don't you think that is kind of related?
No, not really. Violence in Mexico has been long before COVID and long after. The other thing is, interestingly enough, every sociological study shows that poverty does not necessarily increase violence. What does increase violence is lack of ethics and the belief that your property is my property. There are lots of poor people in the world who are, including in Mexico, who are wonderful people. And if poverty increased violence, then you would be expecting everyone who's poor to be violent, and that's just not true. So there, and you can go to countries with lots of poverty, such as Nepal, and they don't have that type of violence. So I think there are other issues we need to look at. It's an easy question to say, an easy answer to say it's poverty, but we have no data to back that up. That's just a hypothesis. The data seems to go the other way. And of course, statistically, if you can find one exception to the rule is falsified. So there are lots of places where poor countries in the world don't have that type of violence.
It is. I just find it strange because you can really hear news not only from Mexico, from many different parts of the world. At least property crime seems to be on the up.
Yes,
maybe not necessarily the violent part, but the violent part could easily come with this, because I think when I met you many years ago in one of your lectures on how to react when you get into a situation that someone wants to rob you, I think you always told everyone just either act crazy, but don't resist, right?
That's right. Yes. In the case of my son's friend, he did make a mistake, and that is they wanted to steal his phone and he wouldn't give it to them. He decided to resist, and they had a baseball bat, and they started and two or three, no matter how strong you are, 2 or 3 men can always overwhelm one man. And then they started beating him with a baseball bat. So they broke his leg. He ended up in the hospital. He has facial damage. And, no one should steal your phone, but a phone is not worth your life.
Now, did this happen in a lighted area, in an
on
area
one of the main streets? And from what I understand, I don't have all the data, but from what I understand, it was on a main tourist drag in Playa de Carmen. I've since learned that many of the Mexicans don't call it Playa de Carmen, which would be Carmen's Beach in English, but they call it Playa de Crimen, which is a play on words meaning crime beach. So obviously this is happening to more than one person if it's got the nickname Playa de Crimen.
But how can this happen in open daylight? You hear so many stories these
I
days
don't
that
think it was daylight.
attacks.
I think it was in the evening. I think it was
Okay.
after dark. Um, but I think that but you know what? In a tourism place like Playa de Carmen, you're gonna have people out all night long because it's a lot of nightclubs, there's bars and things like that. And the real issue, and I think your question is a very good one, is where were the police? Why aren't these places better patrolled? And is there tourism police that take care? Because it's not only stopping the crime, and sometimes things are going to happen no matter where you are in the world. You just can't protect everybody all the time. But when it does happen, do we have some way of showing that the authorities care? Do they stay with you in the hospital? Do they have a translator? In other words, can you turn a truly negative incident at least showing that it's an incident where the community cares? And that's really the important part of it. They're going to be bad people. You can't blame Mexico for bad people. I don't think there's any society in the world that doesn't have bad people. I remember being in England not long ago and people saying to me, be careful you don't get knifed in London. And you have in the United States, Chicago is not exactly what you call a safe city.
How do you see the situation with surveillance cameras and face recognition? Would this help, or do you think it's too much of an invasion of privacy?
I don't think it's either. I think if you're looking as a crime solving system, then a camera will help. But no camera has ever stopped a crime or stopped terrorism. The most camera friendly place in the world is London. I think London has, just in its center city, well over 10,000 cameras. And no camera.
Maybe Beijing has a few more.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, they may be. But in Beijing, it's definitely social control. In London, it's not so much social control. It was just as a way of hopefully stopping terrorism. What it will do, it will help you solve the problem after the act took place, but it won't prevent the act from taking place. So you have to know the reason you're doing something like this, and then what are your goals, and it can be helped. I mean, I'm not against cameras, except when they had the cameras on the red lights. We had those in Texas for a while, where the red light would give you a ticket, and they made so many mistakes that people just insisted they be taken out. And that I know in my town, the police were rushing to someone who was having a heart attack, and the red light camera gave them a ticket.
How discouraging would it be, you think, for a destination to up the penalty for crimes in tourist zones or on tourists compared to
that's a very
locals?
smart move. And the first people to do that was in Aruba. And so just like we have in the United States, what we call hate crimes, right? So that if you're a protected minority and someone does something to you, it's a bigger fine or a bigger jail sentence or whatever the penalty happens to be. And Aruba says their number one group of people they have to protect is visitors. So if you attack a visitor, let's say it's a $500 fine for doing something. If it's found that you did it to a visitor, it's $1,000 or whatever. Now there's a crime against a visitor is much more severe, especially in tourist zones. And that has done a lot to help. That is a much more productive methodology than a camera, because people know there'll be a consequence for their action. And that's part of, that's a sanction. The whole purpose of a sanction, a fine is just another word for sanction. And the whole purpose of a sanction is to stop something from happening. In the case of crime, or stop something from happening in case of an invasion. But that's the reason why you put sanctions on. And yeah, I think your idea, which is already exists in other parts of the world, is a really smart idea. It does a lot of good.
And I think with the camera combined, maybe this could be the winning combination.
It could
I
do.
mean, if you look at face recognition, maybe there could be a warrant issued, like, when your authorities
Yeah,
search
it
your
was,
house, you need a warrant. So maybe there could be a warrant to turn
yeah.
on face recognition.
Of course,
Um,
the big problem with masks, it's very hard to do facial recognition.
of
And
course,
also, if
but
you
if you see
mask,
someone with a mask coming close to you, you're not just going to go towards that person
no,
either.
but in a lot of places during COVID, we were all in masks.
Yes,
Uh,
that is
I,
definitely.
I mean, one of the jokes was that 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, it was illegal to walk into a bank with a mask on. Last year, it was illegal to walk into a bank without a mask on.
You couldn't even have sunglasses on here in Hawaii,
Yeah,
I know,
yes,
according to the
yes.
bank.
So they did it. But anyway, that's kind of a interesting concept. In the end, I don't think anything that's as really good is having a good tourism police. I think tools are tools, but you need people to be able to make those tools work. And without a good tourism police, you don't have a sense of camaraderie. And tourism is all about interaction between people. So a good tourism police is able to comfort you. A camera cannot put its arm around you and say, it's okay, let me take care of you, or what other problems you have. A tourism police officer can do that.
Yeah, definitely tourism police, I think, is important. Also, there are so many cultural differences between tourists and
Yes.
locals. I can tell you a case here in Hawaii when I served on the US Department of Commerce Export Council. And we deal with tourism exports, what is international tourism
Yes.
visitors. We had a case, and I was called to see if I can help for some young Germans. They went to Waikiki Beach, 18 years and 19, a young couple, 18, 19 years old, and they both got arrested for drinking a Heineken on the beach. And it was so severe for local law. They weren't 21. That's one thing. In Germany, you have to be 16, so they didn't necessarily know. And drinking a beer on the beach is also illegal. Well, this is the most normal thing in Europe, to drink beer on the beach. So you can see no one in Europe would think you would go to jail when you drink a Heineken on a beach. So there are cultural differences, and I think
Sure.
this also
think
needs to
about-
be adjusted by law and leniency
Sure.
uh,
And that's why the reason you need a human being. Or think about how many Europeans um, go into the beach not with a bathing suit, but with their birthday suit. And I remember the first time that I was on the French Riviera, and the only people wearing a bathing suit were Americans. All the French, very proper people, got to the beach and took off all their clothes, swam in the ocean, and put their clothes back on. If you did that in the United States, you'd be arrested.
well, the Americans really wanted to see it. That's why you thought of that problem. It's
I remember saying this would be really great if they had more beautiful bodies, but most of them were kind of overweight. It wasn't so great, to say the least. What else is going on in the world?
Well, when talking about tourism, talking about responsible tourism, there seems to be a trend out there, specifically among island territories and island nations like Barbados, like Palau, where people come to the realization we don't really need the big numbers of tourists, but we want good tourists. We want tourists that spend money here. We want tourists that respect our culture, our tradition, and we want tourists to be part of what we do as a local society. So that seems to be a trend in many parts of the world, even here in Hawaii. The first time we have a native Hawaiian running our tourism board who doesn't think tourism is necessarily a good thing for Hawaii. So with COVID, I think a lot of things are shifting in the world.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. Hawaii will be a different situation than Barbados or Palau because it's not an independent country. They can only do so many laws, but they can't prevent Americans from coming into Hawaii. It's
Not
their own
yet, no.
country. Now, if Hawaii wants to become an independent country, it could do that. But I think
People don't want that.
yeah, but I think that would be the end of the Hawaiian economy, and probably the islands would sink. But Barbados is an independent country. Matter of fact, it recently became it separated itself from the Commonwealth, so it's no longer interconnected with the Commonwealth. And Papua, I think is part of micro in
No, it's independent.
it's
Palau it was actually a US territory at some time. I remember when I was there in the 80s, it was a US like Guam, but now it's an independent country. Actually, US has an embassy there. And yeah, they make their own rules and they charge $100 visa fee for anyone, no matter what citizenship you have, if you wanted to come there as a tourist.
sure, okay. So, you think about that, you have kind of landing fees on cruises. I remember when I visited Chile, they charge you $25 to get off the plane. Um, so I guess my number one objection would be if they don't tell you before you go, or if they ask you for only cash. That would be a little bit of a problem because most people today live in a cashless society. So it would be hard to just get, many people don't have $100 on their wallet. They may have it in their bank account, but I think they could take that $100 as part of the plane ticket.
No, and I agree with you. And I'm glad you brought this up with cash because there are many countries, and I was in a situation like this actually before in an African country, so I don't want to name where it is, but it was a nightmare. I didn't have $100 on me in cash, and the only way to pay a visa fee was cash.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do? There's no ATM machine you can get to when you're in the customs area, and you don't have the cash. So that was a real problem. And yes, tourists should be informed before they
Yes.
go, and they
Yeah.
should do research
Yeah,
before they go anywhere.
I don't mind the charge. I do mind that you're taken by surprise and there's nothing written and you're not told anything and you can't research it. And then you get there and they say, we want $25 or $100 in cash. I think that's wrong. And I think we should simplify, add it to the plane ticket.
And there are other countries out there. I don't mind saying it, but I went to Bangladesh years ago, and there was no visa requirement for US citizens. But when they saw me in line, in an endless line of people at immigration, one of these customs officers in plain clothes came up and said, "You're American, where's your visa?" And I said, "Well, I didn't think I need a visa." I said, "Oh, yeah, you need a visa, and I can get you the visa real quick, and you can just pay me." So, and then I did have cash on.
Stealing from you?
Well, he took my passport. He took $100 bill because that's all I had. He wanted 50 for the visa. And then he came back and said, now he can actually get me through customs very quick with a rush fee. And he didn't have change. So I lost my $100 for a visa I didn't need. And I even shook hands with the customs officer who told me whenever I come back to Bangladesh to see him, he will take care of me. So I guess you can turn it into a good thing. You can turn corruption into a good thing if you want to. Yeah.
So I double blame airports on that. First of all, they shouldn't allow that to be taking place. And secondly, they should inform people clearly what are their fees and what are not fees. So if there's, if the airline really is not supposed to allow you to go board the plane without informing you, do you have proper visa or not? I know it used to be, it's no longer, it used to be that Americans needed a visa for Brazil. And if I wanted to go to Brazil, the airline wanted to see my visa and my passport before they let me board. And they were right, because they don't want to be responsible for getting me there and then I have a big problem.
Well, Peter, that is all fine if these are the rules. In the case of Bangladesh, and I had a similar incident in Sri Lanka, there was no visa required. They just made it up because of corruption. So you see corrupt customs officers, the airlines wouldn't know. Legally, you wouldn't need a visa.
But the airport in Bangladesh,
the airport, well, and that is the deal. So corruption is an issue, like tourism police is an issue in some part, what needs to be addressed. And it happened to me. I'm not just going to single out. It happened to me in Indonesia. Yeah. I ended up paying $100 for something what should have cost me nothing. So these things are going on in the world.
Right. So if we or you had a tourism police officer in Bangladesh or in Sri Lanka, and he was present before you even went through customs or through immigration, you could have walked up to him and said, "Sir, is that correct that I need a visa?" And he could have said, "No, sir, that's just not correct." But this is where it's responsibility of the country to be a good host and not allow you to be in that type of corruption.
No, absolutely. But when you have police officers, of course, involved in this corruption, you have customs officers,
Yes,
then it
and that's
becomes
one
a
of the
different
reasons why we have to have
stage.
clean police
Yeah,
and police who are not corrupt. And these are the little things that destroy tourism.
absolutely.
And so tourism to be successful has got to be an honest industry. And if it's not, eventually people forget all the beauty of the place they've been to. They only remember that they were ripped off.
Yeah, and that's the deal. I mean, you have one bad experience, and this is what you remember. You have one good, outrageously good experience. That's what you're going to remember.
By the way,
And
it's breaking news because it's just coming across, although I think it happened a day or two ago. There was a big shootout on the beaches in Acapulco.
well,
And
it looks like there are some issues in Mexico. Let's let's hope. But it's a wonderful country. I mean, I love to go to
it's a wonderful
Mexico.
country,
It's so
but it
the
doesn't
food is
appear-
good, and it's life
Yeah, but it
action
doesn't-
everywhere.
Yes, but I don't think. But it's very discouraging when you have a shootout on the beach, on a beach community.
Definitely, you don't want this. You rather play
It-
basketball or
yeah, playing volleyball on the beach is
or
much better
volleyball. It's definitely
than
better.
ducking
Yes,
bullets.
absolutely.
Well, I think on that happy note, let's hope that the world still has some issues. Let's hope that it will get better. I'm just getting a notification that 3 people are dead on the beach in Acapulco.
So let's not make this the norm. We don't want any dead people on the
No,
beach. We don't want
no.
any dead people in Ukraine. Hopefully let's all work that this world is coming back to normal, because right now I think everyone is going bananas, and this is
We
not
are,
good.
we're definitely going, and it's not healthy. This is, we feel like we're going so crazy, we're bound to hit a brick wall, because what else can you do? Well, let's pray that when we get back, we have some really good news to report about different types of things. And we can see the world with a smile on our face and see tourism as leading people to happiness rather than worried about if they will be mugged or shot.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And for everyone who's watching us, if you want to watch it again, we usually broadcast it every 2 hours live on eTurbo News, but you can always go to our YouTube channel, and it's linked from eTurbo News and all our websites, and you can see everything we did. And we're in the process. You can take a sneak view already on Breaking News Show, breakingnewsshow.com. It only has 2 shows of us listed and some older ones, but we're going to build this up, and all of our events from now on will also be on Breaking News Show. But it's a beginning of something bigger, hopefully.
Yes.
But thank you for watching, and
thank you
for being part of it.
We might want to mention that if other people would like to, from time to time, participate with us, we'd be happy to have guest people on with us. And also, if you have a story that you want us to know about or talk about, we'd be really happy to try to spend some time on a point of interest that would be of value. In the
Yeah, and
tourism,
actually, Peter, we have a website for this where you can actually pitch the story and pitch your idea. If you go to breakingnewseditor.com, breakingnewseditor.com, you find ways of pitching a story to us, and let us know. So we welcome for everyone to be part of our reporting.
all right,
Absolutely.
so breakingnewseditor.com.
.com.
Okay.
Or you can click on any of our websites on submit a story, and it will automatically get you that.
Or just write to us, but whatever way you get.
Yeah,
to us.
but we rather have you go to the because there's so
But let
many
us know
options.
if there's a topic
Yes.
you'd like to discuss, just let us know, and if we can't do it, we'll make it up. But it'll be entertaining no matter what. All right.
Absolutely. All right,
Have a
Peter.
good evening.
You take
Bye-bye.
care. Thank you. Bye-bye.